Hey, everybody, and welcome to Nola 25, a podcast where we sit down with Christian leaders from across the city, hear their stories, and discuss what it looks like to do ministry here in the city of New Orleans. Today, we're going to be sitting down with Bennett, director of Baptist Friendship House, a ministry in the city that reaches out to the poor and to those who have been caught up in human trafficking. I'm really looking forward to our conversation, and I hope that you all enjoy it as well. Hey, Kay, how are you? We're so thankful to have you on the show.
I'm great. Thank you, Isaac. It's good to be with you.
Thanks so much. So to get us started off, why don't you tell us where you're from originally and how you ended up in the city of New Orleans?
I'm originally from Kokomo, Mississippi. There's no beaches there like the song may say, but that's right outside of Columbia. It's about 2 hours north of New Orleans.
Okay.
Grew up on a dairy farm, and well, my mom was a nurse and my dad was a dairy farmer, and they were both good Christians and had me at church almost every Sunday.
That's
so
awesome.
Every time the doors were open at the church. But one thing I learned from my parents growing up is living in the country, if somebody got sick, many times they called my mom, and I'd go following behind her. And my dad, when somebody needed equipment or help, many times they would call him and he would go to help. And so I learned a lot about helping others through my mom and dad. And
That's awesome.
I kind of knew that when I went to college, I wanted to get a degree in something that would be in the helping field.
Yeah.
And so I got a degree in counseling, and I did an internship with that degree. And I was able to minister to people's physical and emotional needs, but not the spiritual need in that internship. And it made me feel very limited and not being able to help a person, in a greater way.
Right.
And so I started talking to my pastor and the director of missions and some folks that had mentored me, and they said, well, New Orleans Seminary has a master's degree in counseling, Christian counseling. And I was like, no, I didn't know that. And so they introduced me to someone that was a professor at the seminary, and I came down and visited and saw the campus, and I had a peace, and I just knew that was where God wanted me.
That's awesome.
And that's kind of how I ended up here, and God worked through the first semester, or after the first semester I was at seminary, God opened the door for me to work at Brantley Baptist Center, which is was the old rescue mission here in New Orleans. We sheltered 250 people a night and had a substance abuse program for 36 folks. And it was amazing because I was able to minister to the whole person there, the physical, the emotional, and the spiritual. And it was like everything that I had ever wanted to do. And I tell people I found a home with the homeless. So that's just how God kind of opened doors and I walked through them.
That's awesome. So do you happen to know like the year that you actually got down here for seminary?
I came to seminary in 1987.
Okay, so you've been in the city for, gosh, what is that like? Do you know the number?
33 years.
Wow, man, that's incredible. That's incredible. So you've been basically, I guess, doing ministry here in the city for 33 years. When did you become involved with Baptist Friendship House?
Okay. After being at Brantley Center while I was going to seminary, God opened the door for me to go as a career missionary there in 1990. And so that's where I began my career as a missionary. And then in 1997, I moved over to Baptist Friendship House to direct the ministry there. So I just moved from the city business district across the French Quarter to Friendship House in 1997.
So in 97, was that like when Baptist Friendship House got started, or was it ongoing and you just stepped in as the director at that time?
It was ongoing. This is actually the 76th anniversary of Baptist Friendship House. It was started in 1944.
Man.
So I just kind of stepped into a role. The ministry was changing there. The neighborhood had kind of changed. Needs in the city had changed. And I moved over there to begin a work with homeless women and children at that point.
Gotcha. And I know a lot of what you do is with human trafficking as well. Were they doing human trafficking at the time, or was that part of your role as you stepped in, was getting that started?
When I first moved over there, you didn't hear a lot about human trafficking, even though it has always been in existence.
Right.
In 2000 is when you started kind of hearing the term human trafficking. So one of the things that I try to make sure of, and I have done this my whole time doing ministry, is to always be current with your needs assessment and make sure that you know what the greatest needs are going on around you are, so that you can try to meet those needs if they're not being met. And so doing homeless ministry was a natural fit with human trafficking.
Right.
God just kind of brought that and laid it in our laps.
Absolutely.
And I remember what really got my attention is one of the families that was in our transitional housing program. She and her little girl were playing in Washington Square Park across from Friendship House. And she came running back to the center scared to death because this man in the park had approached her and told her how pretty her little girl was. And as he talked to her, he asked her if he could buy her.
Oh, no.
And he wasn't wanting to buy her to adopt her. He was wanting to buy her to use and abuse for sexual purposes. And so when she ran back to Friendship House sharing that story with me, I began to read and research and see what was going on around me. And that's when I found out that human trafficking was the fastest growing criminal industry in the world.
Wow.
And the second largest criminal industry. So that's how the ministry kind of got started with human trafficking.
Wow. Man, there's so much there. So you've been in the city for over 30 years doing ministry here. You started directing Baptist Friendship House in 1997. Now it's 2020, and we're in the midst of COVID-19. At this point, what does your sort of day-to-day look like as director of Baptist Friendship House?
Okay, it has. You have to get creative sometimes when things happen. And we've done that. People still come to our doors as normal. They ring the doorbell and they have various needs. We have some folks sometimes getting out of abusive situations, traumatic experiences. We have folks that come to the door that are hungry. We've got about 9 new families that have been coming to the center that have babies and infants, and we've been providing diapers and wipes and things like that from them. But basic needs, some folks come to the center that can't read or write. Some haven't got a GED. Some need job readiness skills, life skills. We're there to meet a person where they are and do life with them, walk beside them, help meet their needs. But it's so important that people understand that we meet needs to build relationships with people so that their lives can be changed through Jesus Christ.
Amen. Man, that's powerful. I bet after all these years of doing ministry, I bet you've amassed like a collection of pretty amazing like stories of redemption. Would you mind maybe sharing like a story of redemption that you've seen through your work?
Absolutely. The one that kind of jumps out to me is Yvonne. For 10 years, Yvonne never came to the center when she wasn't drinking. She was not sober. And we continued to minister her. She would come to our Bible studies. She wanted to work on her GED, so she started working on her GED, which is high set now. But she began working on that, and she celebrated 5 years of being sober this year.
Wow.
But 5 years ago, God began to work in her life, and through the loss of a friend, she realized that she needed to make some changes in her life. And going from being homeless on the streets to now she's told me her life has been like Job. She lost everything to gain it back one at a time. So now she has a home. She has a vehicle. I sent her story. We're a registered site for Christian Women's Job Corps and Christian Men's Job Corps. And I sent her story to WMU, and she was picked for the Faye Dove Scholarship Award.
Man.
And through that award, she loves to cook. She's worked in restaurants before in the past. And so she took the Safe Serve food course so that she could get certified through the health department. And she's my food service coordinator or supervisor. And she just, through taking that course and taking that test, she really fell in love with culinary work. And so she took the rest of that scholarship money to enroll in Delgado Community College in their culinary management program.
That's
and
awesome.
She actually graduates this year in December 2020 with her culinary management degree. So just to watch how God works in somebody's life and takes them from being homeless on the street with absolutely nothing and just totally changing their lives around to where they have everything they lost back is amazing.
Man, that's so cool. And I think that's such a testimony. There's so much compassion ministry going on in the city of New Orleans. I think that's such a testimony that, like, man, when we go out and are faithfully like commit to be the hands and feet of Jesus, like God works through that and he honors that. It's so incredible.
Absolutely.
You said something earlier, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to reproduce it exactly, but you said something about meeting needs and then building relationships and then seeing this sort of new life come into being as a result of that. Go into that more, sort of talk more about that relationship between compassion ministry, sort of meeting physical needs, and then sort of evangelism and discipleship ministry.
In my opinion, you can't separate the two. They go hand in hand. And often, when people are hurting and they've had traumatic experiences, maybe got out of abusive situations, may have been trafficked, when you first encounter them and you're there to meet their basic needs, they often see Jesus in you when you do that before they hear Jesus from you. Because when somebody feels helpless and hopeless and they're hurting, meeting that basic need also says, I care about you. And it builds trust with someone so that they can open up and share their story with you and do life with you. And so if you don't build that spiritual foundation, though, when someone has been hurt like that in the past, if you don't help build that spiritual foundation, introduce them to Jesus, they don't have a foundation to build off of, to build a healthy life off of.
Yeah.
So it's so important that you don't neglect the spiritual part of a person, because that's the life-changing part.
Yeah.
That's where Jesus gives them help and hope and lifts them up out of the situation, because Kay Bennett can't change lives.
Right.
Only Jesus can.
Man, that's such good stuff. So going a slightly different direction here, a little more general, what is the hardest thing that you do, or maybe the hardest thing about what you do as director of BFH? And then what is the maybe the best thing or your favorite thing about what you do?
Okay. The hardest part is probably seeing hurting people each day. That's the tough part. The greatest part is watching God work in people's lives and change them. I always say I get to watch God show up and show out and do things that are miracles many times, and it's just amazing to watch him work.
That's so awesome. That's so awesome. Why do you think I guess what's uniquely hard about seeing people hurting every day, like in your situation specifically, I guess?
I care deeply about folks, so when I see them hurting, it breaks my heart. I mean, when you go pick up someone that may have been trafficked. For example, I remember picking up this young girl, and the human trafficking hotline had called us, and she told us on the phone that she was disabled, but I didn't realize till I got there that she had cerebral palsy. She was walking with a cane, and when she come out and I saw that, I just had this rush of feelings that came over me, and anger was one of them. I know people think missionaries, you gotta, maintain, but I was angry to think that someone would take someone and abuse them and sell them that was in the condition she was in.
Yeah.
And then as I process it more, I got angry to think that someone would even buy someone like that they could visually see was handicapped. And so those rush of emotions, and I see stuff like that, weekly many times, and it just after a while it weighs heavy. So you learn the importance of spending time with God, and praying and reading your Bible and surrounding yourself with Christian friends and church and the fellowship that you enjoy as Christians, because that's where you're going to get release from.
Yeah, that actually leads really well into my next question, which is, has there ever been a time when it feels like it's gotten too hard or too heavy and you've wanted to leave the city? And then obviously you didn't leave, you're still here. So if so, how did God keep you here in the midst of that?
I think everyone probably has experienced a Jonah time in their life. Hurricane Katrina is the thing that jumps out with me when I think about a time that I probably wanted to leave. I remember coming back into the city, and it was like a ghost town here. And one of my friends had asked me, could I go meet the insurance adjusters at her house because it had flooded. And so I go into our neighborhood back behind Friendship House to her house, and I didn't pass anybody going down there. I sat there for 30 minutes or so before the insurance adjuster came, and nobody came up and down the street. And so I kind of stood there and had a pity party. The funny thing is when you have those kind of pity parties, nobody shows up but you. And I was asking God, okay, there's nobody here.
Yeah.
What am I supposed to do?
Right.
And just in that moment of time, though, I turned and I looked at her house, and it was like just God put in my mind, you know what? One at a time. You help people rebuild their homes. You help people rebuild their lives one at a time. And that was probably the greatest moments in my ministry, because I've operated off of that ever since, because we reach people one at a time. Otherwise, it gets overwhelming, especially with the human trafficking ministry, one at a time. That's how we reach folks. That's how we help folks. And it matters to that person we help.
Man, that's so good.
Yeah.
So a little less serious question here. I've been asking everybody on the podcast, really for my personal benefit, to give your 3 favorite restaurants in the city. So what are your top 3 picks?
Isaac, you are asking somebody that loves to eat. Just 3?
Just 3. I mean, if you want to give me more, then like I'm open to that.
Wow. I always tell everybody New Orleans has the best food, the best restaurants in the world. So charbroiled oysters at Drago's.
Yes. I'm so glad you said that. Nobody said that yet, and I was like, how are we still missing this? So
Yes,
they're so good. In my
they
opinion,
are.
it's the best bite in New Orleans.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
The second would be fried shrimp from Deanie's Seafood.
Okay.
I love fried shrimp.
Deanie's is great.
And I'm going to go closer to Friendship House in my neighborhood. I love the early bird special from the Houdat Coffee Cafe behind us.
I've never been to Houdat Coffee Cafe.
You've got to check it out.
So what's on the breakfast special?
You can get bacon, eggs, potatoes, grits, biscuit.
So like
Just
Waffle
the-
House, but way better.
Way better.
Way better.
Way better.
Do they have good coffee?
Homemade preserves and jellies to go on your biscuit too. And their coffee is great. Yes.
Man, wow,
Yes.
I need to try that out. I need to try that out next time I go by Baptist Friendship House. Thank you for giving that to me personally. Jumping back into the serious stuff. You've been in New Orleans for a long time, and I feel like if anybody has insight into sort of what makes the city tick, it's you. So if somebody was moving to the city, maybe for the first time, and they wanted to like understand New Orleans, what would you tell them?
The people and the culture is what makes our city tick. We're kind of a melting pot of people from all over the world. And if you've never fit in anywhere else, you'll fit in New Orleans. You don't meet strangers. If you stand in line to check out at a grocery or somewhere like that, you're going to know what the person in front of you and behind you had for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But the music and the culture and the food are just, to me, what makes New Orleans uniquely the city it is. But the people.
That's
And
good.
the people.
That's good. So, some of our listeners may not know that there's actually an opportunity coming up soon to serve with Baptist Friendship House for NAM's, that's the North American Mission Board's Day of Service. So could you tell us a little bit about what's going to be going on that day?
Yes, on October the 3rd, we will be packing backpacks with school supplies and packing bags also of food to give out to folks in our community that are in need. Kids will be they're starting back to school later this year, so I think it's great timing for that. But due to the pandemic, we have a lot of folks that are food insecure in our community, in our city. And so we'll be able to help them out also.
Gotcha. And is that going to be an all-day thing or like a specific hour, or can you kind of come and go? How?
Yeah, we're going to pack the bags and the backpacks probably starting around 8:30 or so, and usually doesn't take too long to do that. So around 10 o'clock, we'll just kind of switch modes, and we'll start giving out the backpacks and the food bags.
Awesome. So I know there's a way to sign up for that through like the Send Relief website. Are there any other avenues? I know you guys have a website as well that people can contact you. Are either of those kind of okay?
Yes, absolutely. You can contact us. You can call the center, 504-949-4469.
Cool.
You can, on Facebook, Baptist Friendship House. Instagram is BFH_Nola. So any of those ways would be easy ways probably to contact us.
Great, cool. And then final question, for those who are listening who may want to pray, how can they pray for you and how can they pray for the ministry that's ongoing at BFH?
Pray for me and wisdom as I lead the ministry at Friendship House, to especially during the time we're living in, to make sure that everybody is safe and healthy and how we do ministry. Pray for our ministry too in our city, for the fact that our crime rate is extremely high now in our city, and a lot of folks, are just when you have children that come to the center and they talk about somebody getting shot in the block that I live on, or just hearing those stories, there's a lot of fear. So pray as we minister to folks that are in the city that are around a lot of crime, and also as things are kind of getting back to normal, we're having a lot more folks again that are in need of, they need jobs, so they need food, they need clothing, and those types of items. So just pray for us as we meet those needs and build the relationships.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing those. I'm sure prayers will be going up all over for those things. And man, Kay, I know and we at NAM we're just so thankful for everything that you do, for the faithfulness with which you serve. I find myself often, as I'm talking with different pastors and leaders across the city, just sort of geeking out over your level of faithfulness in the city. So, man, I'm just so thankful for your example in that way. So thank you for what you do, and thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you. Thanks for letting me share.
Thank y'all for joining us for NOLA 25. If you're interested in finding more information about K or Baptist Friendship House, you can go to baptistfriendshiphouse.org. And if you're interested in participating in the day of service that we discussed this weekend, you can go to baptistfriendshiphouse.org, click on volunteering, and contact Kay and let her know that you want to be involved. You can also go to Send Relief's website. That's sendrelief.org, and find the day of service page, and then you can register your church there. And under Church City, you'll just need to make sure that you put New Orleans. We want to say thanks, as always, to a few different people. Firstly, to New Orleans Baptist Association for allowing us to record the podcast here. We also want to thank Lakeshore for providing this equipment to us, and I want to thank Abby Guidry, our production assistant. Thank y'all for watching.